Good afternoon, everyone. It's almost 4 now. We'll get started. We have an extremely interesting topic today from Chennai chapter by Ram Kumar Dilli. He's talking on AI code generation risks. We have Ram Kumar Dilli from the Chennai chapter, and Gauthaman will also be joining us for the Q&A. Thank you so much for joining us, both of you. Bishwet from CISO platform will go ahead with the introductions, and then we will have the sessions, and then we will have the Q&A. Go ahead, Bishwet. Over to you.
Sure. Welcome to another CISO platform talk brought to you by our Chennai chapter, where we feature top cybersecurity experts from across the industry. For those who are new, CISO platform is the world's first global online community for senior information security executives, with over 40,000 members globally. You can learn more at www.cisoplatform.com. Today, representing the Chennai chapter, we are excited to host Ram Kumar Dilli, Chief Information Officer at Meridius. Ram is a seasoned global IT leader with over 25 years of experience in IT strategy, cloud, cybersecurity, and digital transformation. He actively advises on national cybersecurity standards and has been recognized with honors such as the Innovative CIO Award, CISO Platform Community Achievement Award, and the Leadership Excellence Award at ACA 2025. Thank you, Ram, for being here. Over to you.
Thank you, Vishwajit. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. So it's an absolute pleasure to be here with all of you today at the CISO Platform Community Session. I would like to begin by sincerely thanking the CISO Platform for organizing this wonderful initiative and inviting me to share the thoughts on such a relevant topic. A special note of gratitude to Vikas, Preeta, and Viswajit for their continuous effort in building this vibrant community. And of course, a heartfelt thanks to Gauthaman for making sure I'm here today and encouraging this collaboration. Today, I'll be speaking about the emerging risk and realities of AI-generated code, something where we are all curious about, maybe a little excited, and yes, a bit cautious too, right? Let's dive into how we can balance innovation and security in the age of AI. See, the purpose of today's session is where we need to go beyond compliance checklist, talk about the culture, the piece that actually stops attack. I would like to share a few real-world case study with lessons that we can apply in our day-to-day scenario. So how many of you feel here that your policies are strong enough, but are they actually lived in the organization? Probably we will be documented it. Whether are we really following it or not, it's a question, right? So policies don't protect organization, but people do. So let's frame today's discussion like AI code generation is obviously a powerful innovation, no doubt at all. But it's important to remember AI is prediction, not understanding. So it generates code that works, but doesn't know if it is secure or compliant, right? So that's why security review is very essential. We cannot blindly trust AI output without applying the same scrutiny we would use for any developer tools or a code when we develop, right? So we'll talk about how to navigate the risk of using AI-generated codes responsibly and how to implement secure development guardrails, including policy for usage, required code reviews like static and dynamic analysis, secure code guidelines, etc. Right? Here, the content covers like the key is the balance where we deliver the innovation quickly but safely. At the end, we will emphasize the importance of policies, training, and tooling. They are the foundation for managing the trust in AI output, validating them, and preparing for the emerging threat. Let's get into the content of today's sessions, right? Why developers love AI tools. The problem in Indian enterprises is, right, many Indian firms have strong, even ISO certified policies, procedures, guidelines, etc. But the gap lies between written policy and day-to-day behavior. Common things like policies seen and audit documents only, but security is treated as IT's job alone. Employees lack real scenarios to understand the risk in the industry, right? Example, like how often have we seen password sharing even when the policy forbids it? How many finance team follow vendor verification calls 100% of the time? Normally, when you emphasize, the attacker exploit this human gap. Cultural resilience means making sure behavior the norm. Normally, how do you currently drive security awareness beyond sending a policy PDF anyone want to share with the organizations, right? So the rise of AI code assistance. Let's talk here more about on the AI code assistance, which have taken off so dramatically in the industry right now. First, look at the tool themselves like Copilot, ChatGPT, Amazon Code Whisper. Each is designed to embed AI directly into the developer's workflow, right in the IDE or chat interface. They feel natural to use. Second is rapid adoption, where developers, teams, even enterprise companies are rolling them out quickly because of the massive perceived value. Survey shows millions of developers using them in just a couple of years for the rapid adoption. And the last piece here is the developer productivity boost. The real appeal is developers can eliminate the repetitive boilerplate, learn new API faster, and unblock themselves with instant answers instead of hours on Stack Overflow. I can even quote an example. Say, for example, like a junior developer tasked with writing CURD endpoints can use Pilot to scaffold the entire service in minutes, timelines for product teams. But this is very critical piece where it is also sets up the challenging for security teams. If AI can create an insecure or a non-compliant code just as quickly, how do we keep up? That is what this session is more about. Understanding both the promise and the risk of these tools can harm can harm them themselves. Here is the interesting point. As I mentioned earlier, why developers love them, right? If you take cut boilerplates, it eliminates repetitive code so developers can focus on real logic. The second thing is quick learning of API libraries. Normally, AI shows working examples instantly, helping developers to learn new faster tools. Few Stack Overflow searches like answers right in the IDE reduces the time lost switching between the resources. And the last one is faster problem solving. Here is where helps unblock developers quickly so that they can keep the momentum. The major security risk, what we are going to factor here is security concerns. Developers uses ChatGPT for payment API, SQL injection risk, right? I'll try to make a quick catch on these scenarios from the security concerns. These tools generate working code, not secure code. Developers may trust the output blindly, skipping the reviews, right? Example, a developer quickly generate a payment API using ChatGPT. It uses string concatenation for SQL queries, introducing SQL injection vulnerabilities that go live. So any developer should get involved with the security engagement activity where the remediation can happen like they need to enforce code reviews for all AI generated code, integrate static analysis to catch injection risk, and train developers to recognize insecure patterns. We can take one of the recent incident which I've read in the in the news tech news where they have published it, a concrete scenario where it inspired by the industry report that really shows this risk in action. I would take an example: a mid-sized fintech firm. A new team was rolling out to a customer onboarding portal. The team wanted to move fast and used ChatGPT to scaffold a payment API. So ChatGPT produced code that used simple string concatenation for SQL queries. But no one noticed during the sprint it went live. So within weeks, right, the attackers discovered the vulnerability and exploited it for SQL injection, like dumping customer PA data and partial credit card details from the database, unfortunately. End of the day, the company ended up with a costly breach notification process, reputational damage, and an expensive audit. Regulators required them to demonstrate stronger secure coding practices. That is where people are emphasizing. In this incident, what that company CISO expressed is as a key learning, AI tools are great for speed, but they don't understand security. They are all happily suggest dangerous patterns if you don't review them carefully. This is the lesson learned during that incident. But they have also shared about the remediation step that they have taken during the implementation based on the learnings, like mandatory peer reviews for all AI generated code. This is one thing we all need to do. Second, static analysis integration in CI/CD pipeline to catch injection risk. Third, developer training on secure coding and recognizing the risky patterns. In this real world lifestyle example drive homes why security review is absolutely essential when using an AI tools in development. So this is a typical example from the live industry where they have shared this for us. Next, I'll whatever the fintech firm which I explained so far, right? So here it is the flow that has been. So when you take this fintech firm, the scenario is they use ChatGPT. So the fintech team used the ChatGPT for payment API. All queries suggested queries with string concatenation, no review before production. Attackers exploited a SQL injection, leaking PII and card data, led to breach notification, audits, and reputational damage. So the remediation step, what they have taken is peer reviews, followed by the implementation of peer reviews, enforced mandatory peer reviews for AI code generated code. Then integration of static analysis, CI/CD pipeline improvement, and integrated static analysis in the CI/CD. Third is developer training, secure code pattern training, trained developers on secure coding patterns. The key learning is insights, security, AI security consideration. AI is fast, but not secure by default. Secure reviews essential to avoid breaches. So this is a typical example where in the real world scenario it has been happened when you use a completely depend on AI platform. Now here is the interesting thing, right? The core security risk. We all talk about vulnerability scanning, VAPT audit, or using a white horse scanning, etc. Right? But vulnerable, these are all the four key risks that has been identified, right? When you use a AI platform, like vulnerable code patterns, licensing, IP contamination, prompt injection attacks, and sensitive data leakage. We can take a scenario again, right? Where AI code generation introduce multiple risks. Example, an engineering team adopts a co-pilot widely. In reviews, They find hard-coded secrets and outdated libraries copied from the public repos. But when they identified, they also attempted to remediate this, right? They conducted code audits to remove secrets, implemented secret scanning in CI/CD, and enforced modern dependency management. So again and again, when you review all these patterns, right, people are emphasizing based on the code conduct audits and remove secrets where they need to perform a secret scanning, all these patterns whenever we move from development to UAT to production, all these scenarios are to be closely followed. The other thing is vulnerable code patterns, right? We talked about the vulnerable code. So where hard-coded secrets, unsafe library usage, insecure defaults, and no validation or sanitization, right? So here again, AI can suggest dangerous patterns where it will, like AI suggests logging in passwords in plain text. It suggests logging user passwords for debugging. So here is where we need to enforce these secure logging standards, use linters to block logging in sensitive data, and ensure code review policies catch this. The next thing which we wanted to bring here is Copilot vulnerability study. This is the recent study from the NYU where 40% Copilot security sensitive code had vulnerabilities that has been identified. Example, SQL injection and XXS. Say for example, Copilot always generate vulnerable functions. As per NYU study found the 40% security sensitive output were vulnerable. Example, Copilot always generates a SQL query, right, with string concatenation. Again, it comes with a string concatenation, SQL query again and again. So in order to eliminate this, the remediation processes, we need to again mandate static dynamic analysis, enforce threat modeling, and require security team reviews for critical features. So always the critical security team plays a vital role during the development, during the testing, during the implementation, during the go live, including post go live, obviously. Let's talk about licensing and IP risk here, where the major concerns, right? Major concerns are A, trade on public repos, risk of GPL contamination, and unclear legal standing, which is where any organization will be very major concerned about this, right? Normally, AA suggests a GPL license code in proprietary products. AA can unknowingly copy from GPL code. So when you take an example for these concerns is a developer accept AI suggested code from a GPL project into proprietary code base without any reviews or blindly it is being taken from the AI platform. But it is mandatory to check to use licensing scan tools before adopting these patterns. Train the developers on IP obligations, which is more important, especially for the product development companies, and define policies requiring provenance reviews. This is more important when you have an IP and a licensing risk for the companies. Prompt injection attacks. Again, this is also falls under the risk, right, category. AI completion can be manipulated. Hidden instruction is in prompts, new surface attacks. So normally malicious prompts override safety checks, right? We all know. Prompt injection is a new surface attacks actually. When an attacker craft a prompt that disables safety filters first in an internal AI assistant. So when it comes to in that scenario, how we can mitigate or remediate the safety filters when it disabled, right? So number one, we need to implement input validation, which monitors the usage for suspicious patterns. And also, it should get trained the developers to recognize prompt injection risks. Okay, so the input validation, usage monitoring, user training. Three things are to be considered when a developer uses the pattern from AI directly. Again, sensitive data leakage. There are several incidents that happening that's even now happening in the globe, right? Where the developers posting code into AI tools, proprietary logic exposure, and one of the incident from a product company where an engineer accidentally exposed to the data, right? We can talk about the real world incidents on this. When a developer pastes production logs with PA into ChatGPT, what happens? What is the data leakage, which is a potential serious risk, right? We'll talk about in the next slide on this. The real world incidents. So the key incident is a product company, which I mentioned, right? They have decided to ban the ChatGPT and the Copilot vulnerability study and the GitHub's disclaimers. These risks are real. The product company, they went ahead and banned the ChatGPT after the data leak, where the Copilot's vulnerabilities are well studied, even though after that. So in this pattern, right, a financial firm also got affected. Okay, we'll talk about more about the real incident in the next slide, where I can give you a flow of how the incident happened, how the remediation, it has been taken care in the real world scenario. So here is what we can talk about the real world scenario inspired by the industry incidents. In the product company, a junior developer used ChatGPT to debug the errors by pasting the production logs, which included customer names, account numbers, actually. This actually breached the data privacy obligation and was caught during the internal audits. They remediated actually by revoking the AI access for that particular team, and they started the QA team, the security, everybody started updating their policy documents to forbid sharing of production data with AI, implementing redaction tooling, and obviously, end of the day, we all need to do training for the entire organization, especially for the team that has been occurred this incident. But what we learned here is AI doesn't know what's sensitive. When we rechange the policy, will this get remediated? The training and the monitoring are essentials, right? So product company went and banned the ChatGPT after leaks. The words 2023, they also followed that OSAP AI security projects, and they also went ahead to implement the best practices of Google Secure AI framework onto this industry. So when you closely watch this flow, right, the where it initially started with the production error log, data sent to OpenAI, breach of policy and regulations, incident discovery, internal audit. Then they went ahead and performed this remediation. And from that, they learned a lesson like AI, lack of data discrimination, unintentional data leaks. They enforced the AA policy, proactive auditing and controls, building the customer trust via data protection. So end of the day, they banned the ChatGPT for the internal usage. But what is the business risk when you ban all these AI tools? Are we really going to develop or enhance or we scale without the AI tools in the industry by banning the ChatGPT or Copilot or anything? Definitely not, right? So these are all the risk potential issues that we need to be considered. Technical depth and CVs, legal IP liability, reputational harm, compliance failure, right? Again, when we take a scenario, this is also a real incident from a retail company where a retail company pushed an AI-generated payment API to production, right? So they went ahead as per the Copilot suggested code, which has an insecure input validation and outdated libraries. Attacker exploited this to steal the customer data. But end of the day, remediation requires security design reviews, shift left practices, dependency scanning, patch management, and developer training. So on a nutshell, if you see all these patterns, right, end of the day, awareness training keeps the play a vital role across the incidents. So normally AI speeds delivery but ignores security. We must enforce secure SDLC practices across all the organizations. So let's talk about balancing innovation with security, right? How do we balance when it comes to the innovation? We cannot live without these tools and technologies, right? We have to adopt how securely. So as I mentioned, the product company banned the ChatGPT usage or a Copilot. But here is the approach and the strategy if we follow, we still can enable these tools and technologies to be used by the developers and any organization. So we don't need to ban AI tools. That's usually the first panic reaction when someone leaks the data, something, right? There was one incident which I wanted to share with, like where a developer accidentally pasted like the product company, and they went ahead with big capital letter, flying around with the heated emails from the CTO and the CISO and a DPO, right? Ban ChatGPT now in all capital letter. But the cooler head prevails, right? Instead of banning it entirely and pretending the problem would go away, they asked, right, wait, what we actually taught people how to use this responsibly, right? It is our responsibility as a CISO and the quality team. So that product company have decided to roll out a strict policies. They clearly defined the approved use cases. So for example, using AI to generate test data was okay, but pasting the production logs with customer data was obviously not. So they mandated training. We cannot restrict them to paste it, right? But we can enforce them in the form of giving multiple levels of training. Like we should be giving training, but not like boring kind with 100 slides of legalese, but practical workshops where developers actually practiced redacting data and testing prompts safely in a way. We also need them to be added in the monitoring, where usage of logs were not there to punish people, but to help catch mistakes early and remind folks of best practices. The key point here is they did not ban the uh, uh, usage of the tools once the strong policies and training has been done. Let's take a basic example, right? If if a car is going to get accident always, right? Will we ban the usage of car in the real time world? No. What we will do is, hey, wear seatbelt, taught people to drive safely, and also follow the rules and regulations as per the government norms, right? That is the governance. So here the remediation step that they used, the product company used is they defined a clear approved use cases for AI tools. Again, enforce training across organization, what is in and out of the boundaries. They also started monitoring the usage of logs, not to be a big brother, but to help people stay safe, right? This approach balanced them with the innovation and the security. Developers just kept their productivity boost, and the company reduced the risk of data leaks and policy violations. That is what good governance look like. So again, same thing repeated. Policy enforcement, redefining of policies, trainings, monitoring. That's it. Now, we talked about so many incidents, real-time incidents, and again, all these incidents are talking about all these 4 points, major 4 points. Let's now move on into how the mitigations and best practices that can be followed in the industries, right? Based on these incidents which we observed so far. So best practices for AI code uses, mandatory code reviews, static dynamic analysis, secure coding guidelines, and defined AI usage policy. So once an organization enforced AI code reviews and security scans, right? It is a best practices to make AI safer. A company wrote a policy requiring AI generated code to undergo reviews and security scanning. How many? I'm not sure how many of us we have a separate AI defined policy, like how we use an information security policy, right? So, so when you want to remediate, right, from all these risk, so it is mandatory. We need to integrate SAST and DAST into our CI/CD pipelines. We also define secure coding guidelines and maintain a clear AI usage policy. And it is mandatory. We can give training in various forms in terms of a video training or in terms of an acceptance usage policy or something like that. But we need to enforce at least 2x per year. We also need to get acknowledged from all the employees of the organization. Not exceptionally, even the CEO can get it acknowledged. So how a developer can be educated on these things, right? Based on when they want to write a code very safely, right? Security fundamentals to be implemented, threat modeling, and AI limitations. This is the training focus that needs to be performed or generated during the awareness of all the developers, right? A company held secure AI use workshops. We can do workshops where it can regularly train during the onboarding include time. And we can also put some demos of AI risk that is easy to catch them, right? So where it is the prime factor is here is education is key again. So we need to schedule secure code training, include AI use in onboarding and use various demos to highlight real risk. So until we insist, apprise the developers and the organization members or the users to ensure that these are all the standard practice that needs to be followed before they start working on the development activities. So here is the best practices which I observed from the industry to make AI code safer. If you notice here, where this diagram shows AI integration as a continuous cycle, right? Where the initial adoption brings productivity gains, but unforeseen security risk. Then the security assessment and remediation comes into the picture again, where it identifies, remediate issues via tools, policies, training, and better reviews, which can be like 3 levels or 4 levels of reviews to ensure that the security risks are taken care. Where the lessons learned, when you see here, right? Automation is a very key process, security culture, and continuous monitoring. So when it comes to the iterative refinement, keep improving policies and process over time, like monitoring and feedback, continuous improvement of security practices, adaptive AI tools usage policies. So it is about embedding security into the AI usage right from the start and treating it as an ongoing process, not just like that. Hey, just be at the beginning of the development practices when your development activity when it starts and leave them as it is. Should be an ongoing process until end of the delivery, and even after go live, it is mandatory to keep on monitoring the environment. Correct. So end of the day, as we keep implementing, enhancing our policies, so we need to define approved use cases, and also we need to restrict sensitive inputs. End of the day, monitor and log usage. It keeps repeating. Probably these four scenarios, these four key points are keep repeating again and again. Policy, training, scanning, log, monitoring, etc. Right? So when an organization initiating to write a policy for banning a production data in AI, it doesn't solves the purposes. Where we need to ensure that the clear policy, enforcement tooling, usage audits, etc. That is where the governance ensures responsible use. So again, three major things is clear policy, enforce with tooling, and monitor the usage with audits. That is the key area which we all need to understand from the usage of AI practice. How tooling support can be done here, right? So we all talk about policies, but we also need to depend on tooling practices, right? So as I mentioned earlier, the CI/CD pipeline got Copilot suggested hard-coded keys, right? So here is where SAST and DAST integration, we need to implement secret scanning tools and dependency checks. So tooling is critical. So when a CI/CD pipeline flagged hard-coded API keys suggested by Copilot, the immediate remediation is integrate secret scanning, automate dependency checks, and enforce security gates. Now, let's talk about future of secure AI coding. How we need to follow this in the upcoming. Based on the research from the major security star walls have given there two major things, right? One is directions, where research on secure generation, embedded security guardrails, AI helping fix vulnerabilities. Second is AI code tools equal to power plus risk. So security must be intentional policy, training and tools, balanced speed with safety. So when a vendor building a secure code generation, right, where it's not all risk, right? The future is promising actually. So vendors are embedding secure code guardrails in the AI tools actually, where it will evaluate the vendors carefully, adopt guardrails, and stay current on the AI security research. So out of all these, right, so many we seen as a fintech firm example, real-time incident example, a product company using the ChatGPT and the Copilot, how they undergone all these breach and remediation process, how they enhanced the AI capabilities by implementing the policies and other things, right? So what are the key takeaways from all these incidents, right? First, AI code tooling brings real power, but also real risk, as I mentioned in the beginning of the session, right? They make developers more productive, but they don't inherently understand security or compliance. That is why security must be intentional. You can't just hope AI suggestions will be safe. We need to be very clear the policies defining what's acceptable, right? We need training so developers know the risk and how to mitigate them. So here is the AI code tools, right? So AI code tools bring real power to developers. They make developers more productive, but they don't inherently understand the security or the compliance. That is why security must be intentional. So this is where the power and risk are collaborating each other when you use the AI codes. Next, as we keep mentioning again and again and again, best practices, clear policy and training. We can't just hope AI suggestions will be safe, right? We need clear policy defining what's acceptable, as I mentioned. We need a training so developers know the risk and how to mitigate them. And we need tooling to automate reviews and catch vulnerabilities. Without these three things, it is very tough. Again and again, we will end up going for a breach. So we talked about the product company example, right? Where a company decided to ban the AI. Now, let's remember that company we talked about earlier, they did not ban AI tools after seeing the security risk. They implemented clear usage policy. They trained their developers and enforced reviews and scanning. Actually, they achieved faster development and maintained security. That is, that is the output or the outcome after the breach and all these implementation has been done within that organization. And when it comes to governance and enablement, safe and responsible innovation. So AI in coding should be governed but not feared or banned. It should not be treated as threat. It should be treated as, hey, this is a tool which get evolved in our day-to-day activities, right? So my final message here, which I wanted to share for this session is AI in coding is not something to fear or ban. It is something to govern. By combining the policy, training, and automation, we can enable innovation safely and responsibly. So with this, I conclude my talk about the AI controls, risk, and mechanism, how we wanted to implement. So I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you so much, Ram. Now I would request Gaudaman to take the questions from the audience with Ram. The questions are posted in the chat box.
Hey, thank you, BCJ.
Should CISO
Hey,
approach
Ram,
creating policies?
yeah, that's the first question.
How should CISO approach creating policies and governance framework around the use of AI code generation tool development within the teams? Okay, good question. See, it's all about everything embedded within all our compliances, right? Be it an ISMS process or a ISMS or SOC 2 or DPDP Act, right? So it is, we need it, the policies are defined by us, right? So end of the day, when we want to, based on experience or the risk which has been identified here, we ourselves can create governance policies. Hey, this is the steps, this is the process. There is no hard code restrictions in the industry. Whatever, when you talk about the ISMS process, right? What they are asking is, if you implement something, you are practicing, put it in the documentation. Or if you have documented it, practices this. So it is all about how we take it and improvising the policies and governance. That when you have a procedure, implement it into the policy. None of the organizations going to stop you in that, right? Make it as black and white, and it helps the other organization to make it. How can organization assess the security risk of third-party AI models and APIs integrated? Again, we need to depend on tools, right? There are various tools available in the market, but what tools adaptability for each, it depends on the budget as well. So the technology that we adopt that will protect the breach, obviously we can go and adopt it. And that is what I would feel. I'm not here to specify any specific tools to implement to mitigate the security risk or usage of any third-party AI models. But ChatGPT, Copilot, even now, if you heard the perplexity of even, they have released, they are tied up with Airtel and released a pro version across whoever is subscriber of Airtel, they can make use of it. But again and again, our entire organization is going to get subscribed immediately because we cannot restrict the end users using their personal account for subscribing all these tools, right? But how we can enforce it is up to us, where we can make use of monitoring the entire environment in terms of DLP protections, enhance the monitoring tools capability of all the endpoints, and ensure the perimeter level restrictions are being taken care. Allow, maintain the logs, monitor the logs, then take a decision accordingly.
Thank you, Ram.
Thank you.
I think, Ram, one more additional point when it
Yeah.
comes to codes and securing, as you mentioned about DLP. DLP prevents it about the known data, which is kind of sensitive or confidential. We have already classified it, and then we should be able to protect it. There are new technologies coming up, which is kind of DSPM, other things, which can prevent the unknown things as well. That even if the user is not tagged or classified the code as confidential, secure, sensitivity, those
Mhm.
technologies will still prevent you to leak from these kind of tools as well. You can also use
Okay.
them too. I thought I'm just updating it here.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that, Gautam. Yeah.
There are a few more questions in the Q&A section.
Okay. Yeah.
Do
So how
you
do
have?
you
Yeah,
to work with and not blindly trust AI-based alerts? It's a good question, Kabilan. Um, it's a practice where we follow, right? So as I mentioned earlier, there are four key things. We need to implement the CI/CD pipeline process. Developers should understand that there are security teams that are keep monitoring the environment. The DevSecOps, the major role of DevSecOps is they need to each and every phase or every stage or even every line, I would say, by considering all these breaches, there is some mechanism, some behind the scenes, someone is monitoring, someone is ensuring that these things are being taken care during the development activities. So there are more security. I would see some of the use cases I would see in the Skillevate or Udemy. There are specific about the use cases training are being conducted. I could not remember immediately, but it helps a lot for us at what stage whether to do or not to do. And also they went ahead and given a scenario where this applicable to one of the control policy in ISMS, this particular level of trainings. Can organization claim proprietary overcode generated by AI? This is something which we need to explore. I'm not 100% sure on this. Sorry about that, Murari. Okay. How about cryptographic encryption and zero trust approaches to the team? So the zero trust is being done at the endpoint level where we are approaching towards where that particular developer going to where between the environment and the sessions that is being used, like between the AI tools, right? The cryptographic encryption is being done at the code level, but it is how far those vulnerabilities are being performed the scanning at the CI/CD level, like using Whitehorse or something like that, right? So I would suggest in my organization, the recent practice, which when we develop an AI product, right, they developed a category where each and every gap, when they identified, they publish it in the knowledge base. This is the gap, this is the remediation is being taken care. And they also implementing, we cannot keep building or enhancing the policies based on the reason, but we can create a knowledge base, right? With that knowledge base, we need to keep apprising the end users during the second level of training or the third level of training. And also we need to conduct how we conduct a security awareness training program, a ad hoc phishing attacks or something training is being conducted. Similarly, we need to conduct such kind of trainings, such kind of ad hoc internal by the security team to take care of evaluate the developers. So if a developer work from home, right, makes a code, how to draft to make use of AI policy, it is up to an organization. I would mention it because we are now working in a hybrid model, right? We cannot restrict the end users to one, but the DLP, the ZTNE implementation or the SASE implementation could help us in mitigating all these